The first thing most people noticed about her was not the music. It was how carefully she watched everyone who passed by, as if she had learned that the world could change its mood without warning. She stood near the edge of a busy street where shops opened late and closed early, where people hurried with their heads down and thoughts elsewhere. The air always smelled like dust, food, and old pavement. This was where she spent most of her days, holding onto a small, worn instrument that had seen better times. She did not always live like this. There was a time when she had a room of her own, a small bed near a window, and a place where music felt safe. Back then, music was something she played in quiet moments, usually at night, when the world felt softer. She never imagined she would one day depend on it just to eat. Life did not ask for her permission before it changed. One problem followed another, and before she understood what was happening, everything familiar slipped away. The streets taught her lessons quickly. Hunger was the hardest one. It was not just the empty feeling in her stomach, but the way it made her tired and slow. Some days she felt strong enough to stand for hours. Other days, even holding her instrument felt heavy. Still, she showed up. She showed up because music was the one thing she had left that no one could take from her. She learned where to stand so she would not be chased away. She learned which places were loud enough to hide her mistakes and which ones were quiet enough to let her sound breathe. She also learned how people looked at her. Some looked past her like she was part of the wall. Some looked with pity, which made her feel small. Very few looked with real interest. She stopped expecting anything from their faces. When she played, she did not think about fame or praise. She thought about survival. Each note was a step forward, a small promise that maybe today she would not go to sleep hungry. Sometimes someone would drop a coin. Sometimes a shop owner would offer leftover food. These moments kept her going, but they never lasted long. Tomorrow always waited with the same questions. Her instrument was old, with marks that told stories of travel and loss. One string buzzed if she pressed too hard, so she learned to play gently. Her hands were rough, but they moved with care. Music had shaped them over the years, even when she had nothing else. She believed that as long as she could play, she was still herself. There were days when she thought about giving up. On those days, the noise of the street felt louder, and the faces felt colder. She wondered if the world even had room for someone like her. But then she would remember the quiet nights from long ago, when music made everything feel possible. That memory pulled her back every time. She did not tell her story to anyone. Words felt heavy, and people rarely listened anyway. Music was easier. Music did not ask questions. It did not judge her clothes or her past. Simply flowed out, honest and raw. When she played, she felt closer to who she used to be. One afternoon, her stomach ached more than usual. She had not eaten since the night before, and even then, it was barely enough. She stood outside a small place where people often came for warm meals and quiet conversations. A sign near the door said performers were welcome, but only for a short time. She hesitated. Rejection was familiar, and it always hurt, even when she expected it. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was warm, filled with soft noise and the smell of food. People sat close together, talking and laughing. No one paid attention to her at first. She found a small spot near the side and prepared to play. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from hunger. She reminded herself why she was there. Not for applause, not for attention, just for food. That simple thought calmed her. She closed her eyes for a moment and let her fingers rest on the strings. The first sound came out quiet, almost shy, but it was steady. As she played, she forgot about the room. She forgot about the people and their busy lives. She played the way she always had, letting her feelings guide her instead of rules or plans. The music carried pieces of her life, even if no one knew the story behind it. It carried loss, hope, and the quiet strength of someone who refused to disappear. At this moment, she did not know that anything was about to change. To her, this was just another place, another attempt, another chance to earn a meal. She focused on finishing the piece, one note at a time, unaware that some ears had already begun to listen more closely. Outside, the street continued its usual rhythm. Inside, something gentle was starting to form. It was small and fragile, like a flame in the wind. She kept playing, unaware that this simple act, done only for survival, was slowly becoming something more. For now, she was still just a woman playing for food, standing quietly in a corner, holding on to music the way someone holds on to hope when it is the only thing left. The music continued to move through the room, slow and steady, like a quiet conversation that did not need words. At first, most people still paid little attention. Plates clinked, chairs shifted, soft laughter rose and fell. She stayed focused, her eyes lowered, her body still except for her hands. She had learned long ago not to look up too soon. Looking up and seeing disinterest could break the flow. Her fingers followed familiar paths, guided by memory more than thought. Each sound carried a piece of her day. The long walk, the cold morning, the empty feeling inside her. She played the way she always did, not trying to impress, not trying to be noticed. Just honest music, shaped by experience and quiet strength. A person at a nearby table paused mid-conversation. Another leaned back slightly, listening without realizing it. The room did not change all at once. It shifted slowly, like a tide that turns before anyone sees it. The noise softened, just a little. The music found space to breathe. She felt it before she saw it. A subtle change in the air. A sense that the sound was no longer fighting to be heard. Her hands stopped shaking. The hunger was still there, but it faded into the background. For these few minutes, music became enough. She remembered a time when she used to play like this for herself alone. Back then, there were no expectations. No need to earn anything. Just sound and feeling. Standing there now, she felt that same feeling return, fragile but real. It reminded her why she never sold the instrument, even when money was tight. A server walked by and slowed their steps, glancing in her direction. Someone else nodded quietly, as if recognizing something familiar in the melody. These were small reactions, easy to miss, but to her they meant more than applause. They meant connection. She shifted into a different tune, one that flowed more freely. It carried warmth, like sunlight through an open window. The notes rose and fell gently, inviting rather than demanding attention. A child at a nearby table stopped fidgeting and listened. A couple stopped talking and leaned closer together. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to breathe deeply. She was not thinking about the end of the song or what would happen next. She was fully present, wrapped in the moment. Music had always been her safe place, and now it felt safe again, even here. The room grew quieter. Forks rested on plates. Conversations faded into whispers. No one had asked for silence, but it arrived anyway. The music had done that on its own. She still did not look up. She trusted the sound to speak for her. She thought about how strange life could be. How one day you could have everything you needed, and the next day you could be standing in a corner playing for food. Yet here she was, feeling something close to peace. It was a reminder that life could still surprise her. Her hands moved with more confidence now. The buzzing string no longer bothered her. She adjusted naturally, turning its weakness into part of the sound. Imperfections had become part of her style, shaped by years of adapting and surviving. Someone quietly placed a small bill near her feet. She noticed it from the corner of her eye but kept playing. Stopping too soon could break the feeling. She had learned that patience mattered. Let the moment finish on its own. The melody softened, slowing down, like a story reaching a meaningful pause. She felt emotion rise in her chest, not sadness exactly, but release. The kind that comes when you realize you are still capable of creating something beautiful, even after everything. When the final note faded, the room stayed quiet for a second longer than expected. Not an awkward silence, but a thoughtful one. She opened her eyes slowly and lifted her head just enough to see faces turned toward her. Some smiled gently. Some looked surprised. A few looked moved. She gave a small nod, unsure of what else to do. She had not planned for this reaction. She only wanted a meal. Instead, she felt seen, if only for a moment. The sound of light clapping followed, careful and sincere, filling the room without overwhelming it. She stepped back slightly, her heart beating faster now, not from fear, but from something close to hope. She did not know what this moment would lead to, or if it would change anything beyond today. But as she stood there, instrument in hand, she knew one thing for sure. For the first time in a long while, she felt like more than someone trying to survive. She felt like someone whose presence mattered. And that feeling stayed with her, lingering in the air, as the room slowly returned to its gentle hum. After the soft clapping faded, the room slowly returned to life. Voices came back, gentle at first, like people were afraid to break something delicate. She stepped aside, holding her instrument close to her chest. Her hands felt warm now, not stiff like before. Her heart was still beating fast, but it felt lighter than it had all day. She bent down and picked up the few bills and coins near her feet. It was more than she usually received in one place. Enough for a proper meal, maybe even something to save for later. The thought surprised her. She had learned not to hope too much. Hope could hurt when it disappeared. A person from one of the tables stood up and walked over. The expression was kind, careful. They spoke quietly, thanking her for the music. She nodded, unsure what to say. Words felt small compared to what had just happened. Another person joined, then another. Simple comments followed. The music was beautiful. It meant something. It reminded them of home, of someone they loved, of a time they forgot. She listened, eyes lowered, feeling a strange mix of pride and disbelief. These people did not know her story. They did not know how close she came to skipping this place entirely. Yet here they were, speaking to her as if she belonged. Someone asked where she learned to play. The question caught her off guard. She answered simply. She learned by listening, by practicing when life allowed. There was no long explanation. She did not want pity. She did not want to be seen as a sad story. She just wanted to be a person who made music. The server returned and offered her a warm meal. Not leftovers this time, but a proper plate. The smell made her stomach tighten with emotion. She thanked them quietly, her voice low. Holding the plate felt unreal, like a gift she had not earned, even though she had. She found a small corner and sat down. Eating slowly, she felt strength return to her body. Each bite reminded her how tired she had been. Hunger had followed her for so long that she almost forgot what it felt like to be full. As she ate, she watched the room. People glanced her way and smiled. Not the quick, uncomfortable smile she knew too well, but an easy one. The kind that says you are welcome here. It made her chest ache in a way she did not expect. She thought about how close she had come to stopping. About the days she packed away her instrument and told herself it was useless. Standing here now, surrounded by warmth and sound, she felt grateful she never listened to that voice. After finishing her meal, she stood again, unsure whether to play more or quietly leave. The room felt different now. Softer. Closer. Someone asked if she would play another piece. The request surprised her. She hesitated, then nodded. She returned to her spot and adjusted the instrument. This time she looked up as she played. She saw faces waiting, open and attentive. The pressure could have frightened her, but instead it gave her energy. She played something new, something brighter, letting the sound lift instead of weigh down. The music filled the room again, but this time it felt shared. Like a conversation where everyone understood without speaking. She saw someone wipe their eyes. Another tapped their fingers softly along with the rhythm. When she finished, the response was warmer, stronger. Not loud or wild, but full. She felt it in her chest. For a moment, she imagined a different future. One where music did not only mean survival. One where it meant possibility. Afterward, a quiet conversation followed. Someone mentioned a small gathering nearby where music was welcome. No promises were made. No guarantees. Just an open door. She listened carefully, not letting excitement rush ahead of reality. When it was time to leave, she stepped outside with her instrument and what little she carried. The street felt different now, even though it looked the same. The noise no longer felt heavy. The cold no longer felt sharp. She walked slowly, thinking about everything that had happened. About how one decision, one step inside a warm room had changed her day. Maybe even more than that. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. Life had taught her not to expect easy answers. But she knew she would keep playing. Not just for food, but for the feeling she found inside that room. As she disappeared into the evening crowd, the music stayed with those who heard it. And with her, it stayed like a quiet promise, that even in the hardest moments, something honest and beautiful could still grow. That night, she did not sleep much. Her body was tired, but her mind stayed awake, replaying every small moment from earlier. The warm room, the quiet faces, the sound of clapping that felt real. She lay where she usually did, holding her instrument close, afraid the feeling might disappear if she let go of it. Morning came slowly. The street looked the same as always, busy and loud, but something inside her felt different. Not louder, not dramatic, just steadier. She ate the last of what she had saved from the night before and stood up, stretching her sore muscles. For once, hunger was not the first thing she felt. She walked through familiar paths, past places where she had played many times before. Some days people ignored her there. Some days they hurried away. Today she still stood in the same spots, but she played with more calm. She was not chasing coins. She was simply playing. A few people stopped. Some listened for a moment, then moved on. That was normal. She did not feel disappointed. She understood now that not every place would be like that room. And that was okay. Later that day, she reached the small location that had been mentioned the night before. It was not fancy. Just a simple space where people gathered in the evenings. She stood outside for a long moment, unsure. Doubt crept in quietly, telling her she did not belong. She almost walked away. Almost. Then she remembered the faces from the cafe, the way they listened without judging. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. Someone greeted her kindly and asked if she played. She nodded and held up her instrument. There was no long talk, no paperwork, no pressure. Just a simple invitation to play later that evening. She spent the afternoon nearby, watching people pass, letting time move gently. When the evening came, she felt nervous again, but it was a softer fear, one mixed with excitement. When it was time, she stood near the front. The room was smaller than the cafe, quieter too. People sat close together. Some held drinks. Some whispered. She began to play. This time, the music came easier. She did not rush. She did not hide. She let the sound fill the space naturally. The room listened. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with attention. She played several pieces. Each one felt like a step forward. She could feel the connection building again. Not as strong as the first night, but real. Afterward, a few people spoke to her. They thanked her. One person mentioned they knew someone who liked live music. Another asked if she played often. No promises were made, but something new was forming. She left the place feeling tired but hopeful. The street lights glowed softly as she walked. For the first time in a long while, tomorrow did not feel so heavy. Over the next few days, small changes continued. She was invited back. She played again. Sometimes the room was fuller, sometimes it was quiet. She learned not to measure success by numbers. She measured it by how the music felt. She still played on the street. She still depended on kindness and chance. But now there were moments when she played simply because she was asked to, not because she needed food. One afternoon, while resting between songs, she thought about how fragile this new path was. One bad day could end it. One closed door could stop everything. But she also knew something important had shifted inside her. She no longer saw herself only as someone struggling to survive. She saw herself as someone with a voice. A quiet one, maybe, but real. The memory of that first room stayed with her. Whenever doubt returned, she held on to it. Proof that her music could reach people. As the days passed, she continued forward, step by step. No big dreams yet, just steady movement. She did not know where this road would lead. But for the first time, she felt like she was walking toward something, not just away from hunger. And that feeling stayed with her, growing slowly, like a light that does not rush, but does not fade either. Time passed in a quiet, steady way. Not fast enough to feel like a miracle, but not slow enough to feel stuck. Her days found a new rhythm, one shaped by music instead of fear. She still woke up unsure of what the day would bring, but the weight in her chest was lighter now. Some mornings she played on the street as she always had. The same corners, the same passing faces. But even there, something had changed. She stood straighter. Her hands moved with more confidence. People noticed the difference even if they could not explain it. Other days, she played in small spaces where she was invited back. Nothing grand. Just rooms with a few chairs, warm lights, and people willing to listen. Sometimes the room was full. Sometimes it was nearly empty. She learned to play the same either way. She learned that music did not promise comfort every time. Some days the sound felt flat. Some days her fingers slipped. But she did not let those moments break her anymore. She understood now that real growth was quiet and uneven. One evening, after finishing a short set, she sat alone for a while. The room had emptied. Chairs were stacked. The lights dimmed. She listened to the silence and smiled softly. This silence felt different from the one she used to know. It did not feel lonely. It felt earned. She thought back to the day she walked into that warm place just looking for food. How small her hopes were then. How tired her body felt. If someone had told her that moment would change everything, she would not have believed them. Life did not suddenly become easy. She still struggled. She still counted what little she had. But now, there were moments of dignity woven into her days. Moments where she was welcomed, not tolerated. People began to remember her. Not her past, not her struggles, but her sound. Some greeted her with smiles. Some asked when she would play again. These small things mattered more than money. One afternoon, a simple opportunity came her way. Nothing dramatic. Just a chance to play regularly in a small space. The kind of place where people came to relax, not to be impressed. She accepted without hesitation. The first day she played there, she arrived early. She cleaned her instrument carefully, wiping away dust that had gathered over time. She adjusted the strings and tested the sound. Each note felt like a quiet promise to herself. As people arrived, she began to play. Not louder than usual. Not softer either. Just steady and honest. The room filled with gentle sound. Conversations slowed. Smiles appeared. She realized then that this was what she wanted all along. Not attention. Not praise. Just connection. At the end of the evening, she packed up slowly. Someone thanked her and told her the music made their day better. The words stayed with her long after she left. She walked out into the night, her steps calm and sure. The street lights flickered above, familiar and kind. For the first time in years, she did not feel like she was carrying her life alone. She still had far to go. She knew that. There were no guarantees, no clear future written out. But she trusted herself now. Music was no longer just a way to survive. It was a bridge, a voice, a reminder of who she was. Somewhere along the way, people stopped seeing her as someone playing for food. They saw her as someone sharing something real. And she saw herself that way too. On quiet nights, she still played for herself. Just like before. Sitting alone, letting the sound move freely. Those moments grounded her. They reminded her where she started. She did not chase big stages or distant dreams. She focused on each note, each room, each shared moment. Because she had learned something important. Sometimes the smallest chance can open the biggest door. Sometimes playing for survival can lead to something far greater. And sometimes, all it takes is one room full of listening hearts to change the direction of a life. She continued forward, one step, one song at a time. Not afraid anymore. Not invisible. Just present. And that was enough.